All right, so guys, today is a very special episode, way longer than we had anticipated. So for that reason, we're gonna do a two-part episode. We're gonna have a first part and the second part. So we're gonna break it up that way. Very exciting stuff that you don't want to miss. We have a special guest on here, Michael Opara, and has a lot to share in terms of culture and just life in general. So you want to stick through and watch both episodes. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. I got you.
did it.
Already done.
Good. So I'm the one who's lifting.
You're supposed to be a professional.
I thought I was trying to be like, okay, let me be the guy. So yeah, I was wasn't it? Yes. So it's this is our second episode we're trying to run. Okay, we've had the first episode. It was a good introduction into the podcasting world. A little bit to learn there.
Test the waters.
Yeah, and then suddenly we kind of disappeared for longer than we had anticipated. So I don't know if anybody has anything to say about that.
That's my fault. It's my fault. We did an episode. It was good, and then we were just talking about having a sabbatical, and I did it, man. I took a time out, and I can recommend it to you guys. I went traveling. I actually went to end up in Spain. And I started this walk, doing like the walk along the coast, this old pilgrim's route. So time out, man, it was like I was close to like turning my phone off completely, but I kept my phone happening, but I put my email on pause and everything, and it was good. But it was funny, man, going to Spain because I'm from Australia originally, pretty social place, and suddenly being in Spain as a tourist and being kind of like welcomed as a tourist as well. Like there was this like interactions. I don't even speak Spanish, but it was still like people like tried to engage with you and that coming from Norway was like, I forgot the world could be like that. Totally. It was like, shit, that's right. You can just like talk to somebody about random stuff like on the side of the road and they'll like engage with you and not like.
I guess most parts of the world are pretty much like that, if I'm not mistaken. Just Norway and maybe the Nordic countries that are a little bit different.
I always say you could tell it. You know everything you need to know about a space by spending some time at the airport.
Really?
Okay.
If any space you go to, I usually tell people, you know everything you need to know about it. Just spend some time at the airport and observe before you actually step out.
Interesting.
If you go to Spain, like I've been to Spain, a couple of times, and you see the atmosphere changes right away. Everything moves a bit faster, just slightly faster, and people are more lively, more happy, more smiling when they get there. You can easily know, okay, it's going to be a good place. So when you go to Vegas, right? I mean, because Vegas, you have the slot machines, you have everything happening at the airport.
At the airport.
At the airport.
They get you in the mood straight up.
You know where
losing.
you're at.
You know where you're at. It's like, oh, okay, this is how you roll. And you have like these billboards everywhere.
Okay.
And then you get the
Interesting.
vibes right away. But when you come to Bergen,
There's nothing.
There's a certain.
There's a shop for
Right.
buying you cheap wine on the way in, and
Well,
that's like open 24 hours
and
a day.
I mean, and everything kind of like stands stills and get the volume
Yeah.
tone all the way down. You feel it. I mean, I feel it
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
And for the most of it, it's probably raining
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
And there's just like disconnects right away. So
Interesting.
people tend to underestimate the power of just spending some time at the airport before stepping out of it.
I'll try the next time when I land. No matter how tired I am, I'll just probably sit there for a couple of minutes and.
You're from
observe.
Cameroon. When you go to Cameroon, you feel the energy right away, don't you?
Yeah, man, the heat wave that hits you as soon as you step.
There you go.
That's the first thing. Everybody knows this. As soon as you step off that plane, it's like whew, heat.
Yeah. Same.
Anyways, Michael, before we get into this, I think it's going to be kind of good for the audience to get a little bit of an insight as to who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Oh God.
So that thing you were trying to run away from, I'm going to throw it right at you first before we even proceed.
Shit.
We have a guest. You're our very first guest on this
Oh,
podcast
okay.
concept
All right.
of ours.
Thank you very much.
This is a pleasure for us.
I'm gonna try to set the bar too high. Just keep a little bit, but the next guy is coming in.
Go for it, Michael.
All right. So my name is Michael. From Nigeria, West Africa. I live in Bergen right now. I studied chemistry at the University of Bergen. But somewhere along the line, I kind of always delved into the art scene, the art world. Creativity has always been my thing. And well, used to be or still am, I'm not sure, a cultural curator. I'm the founder of something called Slam Poetry, Barrigan. Also the founder of something called Sneaker Storm, and pretty much been dialed into the cultural pulse or movements in Barrigan, quite active for a bit. Used to have my fingers in everything, but these days I tried to go and take a little break, like you said early on, which has been amazing. By the way, highly recommend that to everybody.
Okay.
Because it feels like a hamster wheel sometimes, when you get into this thing that we do where we wake up in the morning or we think it's creativity, that music I need to make. I'm also a music artist, but I do that just as a form of a cathartic release type thing. Not never been one for the spotlight as much. I'm okay being behind the scenes, or I prefer catapulting people to a different level.
Okay.
Because I'm an advocate of believing in people type thing. Because the thing is, what I usually tell, because I'm also a high school teacher.
You got so many hats on, eh?
No, and I'm cool with it.
It's good.
No, because I'm not a singular creative, I'm a multifaceted creative, and I'm okay with that. It's just that when you live in spaces like Norway, those things can be a bit weird, because here you're kind of in a way tailored to do one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people ask,
stay in your lane.
Just stay in your
Yeah,
lane.
there's definitely.
So, but when you're West African, there's one of my favorite designers of all time. His name is Virgil Abloh, from Ghana, actually, originally. He used to be the creative designer for Kanye West when he started. And at the end, he became the head of creatives at Louis Vuitton, which is the high fashion brand.
He passed away, is that correct?
Yeah, he passed away recently. And he said that by default, as West Africans or as creatives, we're very multifaceted and very conceptual. So we should be okay with that. And he's actually an architect by vocation. But he stepped into the arts, and he's a DJ also, and these things are okay, they're not as nuanced as we think they are. It's just because when you live in a space that does not allow you move, and in a way takes away your autonomy as a person, by way of something I call paternalism. Paternalism is when, like for example, the founder of IKEA, where people feel that they know what's in your best interest.
Okay.
And try to control that. It doesn't allow for you to have that freedom of self-expression.
It's like a conformist culture.
Yeah.
It creates a conformist culture, so to speak. So for me, I just try to shy away from all that. And I'm okay with not having that many friends who understand, I'm okay with people not agreeing with me. That's okay also. I can hold space for that. However, though, there's not that many of us that do these things, So when you tell me you do this and this and this and this and this and this, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. For me, it's not a surprise. Or you do the same. But for the average, I dare to say Norwegian, that's like, okay, this guy is everywhere.
Too much.
This guy is too much.
Yeah.
So now I just say, if I'm too much for you, just go find less. That's what I say.
Okay, that's a good one.
Interesting.
Just go find less. I like that one.
I'm cool with that.
But you've been here a while?
Oh man, too long, man. I came to Norway in 2002. I used to live in Oslo.
Yeah.
I went to high school in Oslo, like a predominantly white high school called Handelsgym, which is like on the
business
on the west side of Oslo. So it's like super posh, like that. But I kind of needed some change of environment type thing.
Yeah.
And then I left Oslo and just moved to Bergen. Didn't know anybody.
Okay.
In Bergen, I just moved. First 2 days I slept outside. I remember.
How was that?
I was lucky. The weather was nice.
Yeah.
No rain?
No, man. I was lucky. I slept on the grass outside.
Oh damn.
Outside the National Scena.
Well.
Was it in the summer,
yeah.
winter, or
No, because I came to study, so it was around August, right? So my apartment wasn't ready, right? So, and I was a bit eager to get out of Oslo, so I came in. I came in on a I came in on a Friday, and I remember going to the apartment spot, and the lady was like, "No, you're not due until Monday," and I'm like,
Wow.
that's cool," and the weather was nice. I didn't pack that much, and I went to B station because they had these lockers, so I just found a locker somewhere, just put my stuff there. I said, if I could explore the city, so I went out, slept on the grass the first night, went to the movies like 4 times because I had nothing to do, and then on the Saturday night, luckily for me, I just found a club or whatever, I can't remember where it was, and I met a bunch of people. They invited me to an after party. I was there catching the vibes, and
Okay. But then you started making connections quickly then, or?
yeah, I mean, I'm a kind of guy that just likes. I know how to. I feel like I have the gift of gab, which is I kind of know how to meet people and just talk to people, and
Yeah.
and it's also a beautiful thing. I think we had this conversation early on, and stop me when I'm talking too much. By the way,
go for it, man.
Please.
You're the guest. You need to pour it out there. We're here to listen.
I study this philosophy of a guy called Badiou. His name is Badiou, French philosopher, and he mentioned something called cultural capital. And because there are 3 forms of capital, you have economic capital, that's how much money you're making. And you have social capital, that's your status, and you have cultural capital, which is pretty much, so what do you know? Music, art, photography, cinematography, anything that makes you get around, because those things money cannot buy. You have to pretty much immerse yourself in that world. And luckily for me, I grew up with a mom who was a strong believer of cultural capital. So she, I didn't have all the cool clothes, but I had all the comic books. You know what I mean? Like I'm a comic book head. Like all my money used to go to comic books. I swear, it's kind of a nasty habit. And so I read a lot of comic books. She would take me to art exhibitions. She would take me to concerts. She was probably the biggest fan of Elvis Presley and ABBA.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fucking weird, man. It's like growing up in Lagos. I didn't grow up in Lagos, but living in Lagos for a while, I would, I had all the vinyls, everything, like Boney M, what's his name, Reeves, UB40. I was already in that world, and my dad used to live in Norway, so when he came back, he would bring all the.
You bring it all with him.
Right. So
okay.
you know what I mean? So I was already in that,
right.
And we had Fela Kuti, of course. I had all the.
Yeah.
So growing up, I already had that in me. So when I came here, it was like, oh, what's up? Cool.
You knew the references in a way.
I was already well versed in those references.
Okay.
So I could get around a bit. And,
Yeah.
And I listened to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Punk rock, everything. I'm already in that world. There was a time I even stopped listening to hip hop. I was just listening to just rock. I'm not kidding, man. Crazy.
That's crazy.
So it's easier for me to move.
Yeah.
And to meet people,
yeah,
chop it up with them on whatever topic.
So it's more than 20 years ago you came to Bergen, but do you feel like you hit your, you kind of got comfortable with it quick, or?
Still not comfortable with
it,
Yeah. Okay. What's like? It's like, what is that one thing that you think is going to make it more comfortable for you? Or do you think it's never going to be comfortable?
It's probably going to be comfortable in about 30 years.
Wow.
So maybe just 8 more years?
No, not for me. From now.
Plus 30 again?
Because one generation is about 30, 33 years, right?
Right.
And I think it's not on us to make that change. I think we're the guys who are like the sacrificial lambs.
Oh, yeah.
Know? And then...
Of the internationalization of Bergen?
For sure.
You think?
For sure. Especially when you have the rise of social media now, where the globalization aspects of it is getting much smaller and more, everyone is more connected than ever before. And plus, the kids growing up now, they have access to what's going on outside the world.
More exposed
right, they're exposed
foreign culture.
Yeah. But for the rest of us, we grew up with people who all they knew was Osana. Or wherever else, you know. And then you coming in as a foreigner is like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
he's Australian. Oh wow,
Yeah.
what are you doing here? You know,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess
gotta
that's a
get
little bit
beyond that.
different for me because I've only been here in Norway for 6 years. So both of you, you've been here for about 22 years or so. You've been here for about 20
Almost
years.
20 years.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would say you guys were the sacrificial lamb, sort of, and the era when I came in was a little bit different. Even though I feel like it's still not there yet, but it's quite different from what I believe you guys kind of experienced.
So I had this job. This is years ago now. I had this job, and I had to go to Møhlenpris Skole, and that was a school that at that time it was like pretty multicultural school, and we were filming these kids that everyone got on a bus, and they took them out into the country to this tiny little school of just Norwegians, and they were in the snow and playing, and it was like this like city meets country kind of vibe, and I just had to film this little project because it was kind of unique, or it didn't happen that often, and then. It must be like almost 10 years later, this adult person, like someone in their 20s or around that age, they were like, were you on this thing where we went out and you filmed us when we went out and we're in the snow? And it was one of these kids that like hit adulthood and remember me from that project. But for me, it was like this tiny little project a long time ago. And then it was, for me though, it was like, okay, this is that generation where like they're now adults and starting to occupy the adult world as like Bergen has kind of hit this like point now where they're no longer like the new immigrant kids kind of thing. They're the daily. This is normal, and in a way, it was cool. It was cool to like say, okay, I've been here that long now. I've seen that like transition, and now it's like that generation is like established.
So you need the next generation, which
Yeah.
are their kids. They're the ones
yeah.
I believe, like my kids, for example. You know,
Yeah.
they're the ones who I think are going to be better suited. You probably also, but at the same time, you have kids. You know, and of course, everything seems not easier. It's not, but you can move
Relatively
around.
to the
normalized,
way you
right?
guys had it.
Normalized.
Right, and but just by default of you being a father, you know, I think it would be your kids actually who make those moves that you're looking to really make. Not that you're not going to make the moves, you know what I'm saying, but I look at this as a generational thing. Have you heard about Ray Kurzweil? Ray Kurzweil.
No.
So Ray Kurzweil is like the godfather of artificial intelligence. He started all this.
Oh, Kurzweil. Yeah.
Thank you. And he has this thing called paradigm shifts when it comes to technology, where every 10 years there's a new thing coming in. And that also applies to culture. But we need to multiply it by 3 when it comes to culture. This is some research I do on my own. I spend a lot of time by myself. I think I've told you this before. I'm by myself a lot, you know, a lot. And so I realized you need to multiply by 3 in terms of paradigm shifts. Why? Because when you multiply by 3, then you have a generation. That's 30 years.
Right.
And TikTok is amazing right now. I don't have social media like that. I really don't use that thing that much. But if you think TikTok is amazing, well, guess what happens?
In the next 30 years.
In a generation.
In a generation, then you're probably competing with AI.
Yeah.
And at that point, what happens is that the world all of a sudden globally becomes integrated.
Yeah.
Because now you're kind of wondering what the hell AI is.
Yeah.
Right. But now we still kind of separated because we still have autonomy over what we do as individuals, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And we can do it singularly in a singular space, like for example, Norway, right? Or Australia. But when 30 years from now, there's another form of intelligence. Now everyone feels racism or ethnicism or xenophobia. That's all out the window now. Why? Because now you're competing against something else.
Now it's us and the robots.
Robotism.
Like,
Robots will unite humanity.
Robotist. Yeah, that's a good one. Right.
So bring it on, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So that's why I'm not worried. I'm watching. I'm like, no, it's going to cancel itself out. A bit.
Interesting. I definitely feel like I'm maybe a bit older than you guys, but I was becoming an adult in the 90s.
Okay.
And
best time to
in a way, like it's this golden decade of like it was, and you don't know, and like at the time I didn't really get it, and 20 years later it's like, wow, the 90s were really good,
like,
man.
It feels like it was the best time for everybody. the kids, the
Yeah.
adults. Like
Yeah.
even me remembering that time, I was just like, damn,
Yeah.
it was just a different era in terms of
Yeah.
everything.
And part of it in my head now is that there was this, like, the idea around globalization was still pretty positive at that point. Like there were like people worried about, okay, there's going to be, you know, like you're going to lose your jobs because manufacturing is going to go here and there. But socially, it was like this exciting thing of like, oh, the world's coming together now. Like we're really going to be in the same neighborhood. And then for the last 20 years, there's been this gradual like
Negative.
xenophobia and negativity and like this feeling of people being split up into their little, you know, where you're from or what you do and kind of separated. But I'm hoping it swings back again, and it's almost like you're seeing that too, or
Yeah, I mean, ever since I decided to take a little step back from culture, you know, I started to appreciate culture more. Actually, when globalization happens, what happens also is that we're exposed to each other's vices. You know, like for example, the things. If we use racism as an example, right? You don't really know what racism is until you meet an actual racist.
Yeah, until you feel it. Or
You know what I mean?
experience it. Yeah.
Or let's not even use racism. Let's use microaggressions, because
Yeah.
microaggressions also apply to white, black, whatever. As long as you're a foreigner in a different space, you're going to feel
Yeah.
You're gonna feel
microaggression.
that, yeah.
For example, when you get on the bus and nobody talks
Yeah.
like that, or when you sit down, nobody wants to sit close to you, or when
Yeah.
you ask for directions, nobody answers, or nobody says good morning.
Yeah.
You know, just
Oh, yeah,
basic
yeah, yeah.
stuff. You know, that's that microaggression you also feel, but you weren't aware of when you were in Australia, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
or when you were in Cameroon, for example.
Yeah.
But now when you're here, you're like, oh,
On the receiving end of it.
So
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
You know,
it's a whole
Yeah.
different world that
like,
you kind of
what-
experience it.
what is this, fam? You know?
Yeah.
And the lack. My arguments with Barrigan is always been like the lack of diversity is what causes all this.
Yeah.
You know? If you're in Australia, I've never been to Australia, but I can't imagine.
It's diverse to begin with. Like it's there. Like there's a white majority from colonial
course.
times, and there was some nasty shit went down
Yeah.
then. But ever since after the Second World War, it's just been like a mixing pot. So there's just certain things that, I mean, there's no shortage of racists in Australia,
Oh, for
but
sure. Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like it's just you just take it as a given that we're all from somewhere else, and we've all got some sort of like cultural connections to some other part of the world. But Norway is like, you're from the town you're from, and if you're not from that town, there's even like, but within Norway, there's sort of like, oh, what dialect does that guy got from? And there's all these like assumptions that can be made, or these weird, and then if you're further away from Norway, it's like,
It's a different ball game for you.
yeah,
For
it's
sure.
kind of, yeah,
You
definitely.
think about this. I mean, like, because I spend time with these ideas a lot, and it's just very. Because I always ask a Norwegian, and I would say, when was the last time you made a new friend? You know, like, just you could actually do this experiment yourself.
What's
Yeah.
the typical answer that you usually get?
No one would tell the truth.
Okay.
People will give you half truths. You know, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know just one guy from Australia." You know, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, okay."
Yeah. But you still hang out with the
Right.
kid from 6th grade that you were mates with
So
then,
it's,
right?
more, it's more like acquaintances that you made and not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, very, very. Another philosophy. I mean, I love philosophy, obviously. And there's a guy called Ken Wilber. He has this book he wrote called No Boundaries, and it addresses something called integral consciousness, where we go from the I to the us to the we.
Okay.
You know, the I is when you're born and your ego and everything. It's all about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The babies, right?
Yeah.
And the only person you really care about is your mom.
Okay.
Right? Your dad does not even begin to exist at this point. No, it's true. Babies don't know who you are until a bit later, and they'll be like, oh, that's my dad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so if we look at the I as a baby, or us as, the I as a baby, and then all of a sudden comes your father and your cousins and your sisters, you know, that's the us.
That's the us.
right?
Yeah.
And then if you can take it one step further, is people you don't even know. Like, I'm in this room, I've never met you before, but we share a certain kind of common, you know, and then we can have this conversation. That's the we.
Yeah.
what I usually
Foreigners
say,
living in Norway.
right?
The we.
Now that's the we. However, though, what I do say is, and I say this with a pinch of salt, and please don't kill me for this. It's just an assessment of mine made.
Hey, Daniel, where's my knife?
And it's
Take
like
him out.
it's in Norway. I feel like people never get past the us phase.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know?
Until they've lived overseas
Right,
themselves,
there you go.
which is like the thing. Yeah.
That's when it happens.
And there's this thing, because lately I've been thinking too, I think it was a comedian I heard joking about it. Most people in the world, like 75%,
Yeah.
like always end up living within 20 kilometers of where they grew up or something. There's some like statistic, like
Okay. That's interesting.
people don't move as much as you, like out of the 8 billion people on the planet. So the people that end up like actually switching continents and really moving around, like we're a minority. And we're kind of the weirdos in a way that do that and like establish yourself somewhere else,
Yeah.
unless you've been forced to by
Kind of move
having to
some-
get out of a conflict or something like that. But then it's kind of like, I think that like to flip it around, like if you think back to Nigeria, like some smaller village or something way out where
Right.
people are kind of stuck
Right.
in that lifestyle they might
Right.
have. How many of those people have got a new friend recently? Like, is it the same situation?
It's
Are they
crazy
kind of
you say that because I usually compare all any part of the world or any part of any space or country that's located in the north.
Okay.
They usually have something in common. And this I could be totally wrong with this thesis or
I'm from the Southern Hemisphere, so we'll test this.
you know, if you like in Nigeria, the Northerners,
Right.
right? They usually keep to themselves.
Ah, interesting.
In Cameroon, the Northerners?
The north of Australia.
Yeah,
They're
kind of as
If
well.
you think about it, if you really think
And
about
they,
it,
they really have should I say, a stronger sense of culture?
exactly. Look at Northern Ireland, for example.
Huh.
You know what I mean? There's that patriotism,
Yeah, right.
right? I've been observing these changes, you know, and look at Norway's up north, Scandinavia as a whole,
Yeah.
right? It's the same kind of
Dynamics.
right? It's just this is our space. Who are you? You know, and I'm like I'm watching it, and it's just something I've been watching, observing lately in Northerners. But when they go out, you know, they feel it also now. They're like when a guy from northern Nigeria comes down to the south, like to Lagos or something, we can always tell.
Ah, okay.
We can always
He
tell.
feels a little bit out of
Yeah,
the
my boy's
usual.
like, I'm not in my
Suddenly comes to the realizations like the world is bigger than where you're from.
Right, there you go.
Right.
So that's one thing I see in very homogenic spaces like Norway, for example. You know, it's just one language,
Yeah.
and everything else is just dialects.
I wouldn't say, if you said that to a Norwegian, it's just one language, they'd be like,
Yeah, no.
but
What
my
do you
dialect.
mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, but that's when you have that homogeneous textures in spaces. That's what you get, because and at the same time, being diverse is a curse.
In this country?
No, for you and for me and for him.
Yeah.
Because if you're from a diverse space, diversity forces you to be very accepting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I'm from, like, let me use myself for example, right? In Nigeria, we have over 300 different languages, over 100 different cultural, ethnic groups, which means at any given point in time, in any room, might be 5 guys from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
However, you're still my guy. You know what I mean? I'm like,
There's always sort of a common ground where you guys can relate, even though you know there's so much difference at the same time.
Right. You know, I'm like, yeah, that's my boy. It's all good. That's my girl. It's all good. Not a problem. We're very accepting and very understanding. So now, what happens when you leave that space and you come to like Norway? What happens is Norway becomes just another ethnic group, not a country, an ethnic group. So you treat it as you would treat the other ones.
The other guys from a different tribe. Or...
Right. But what you're forgetting
It doesn't work in reverse.
It's like, so for a long time as a foreigner, you go around thinking, what's going on here?
Am I doing something wrong?
Something missing. Well, that's because you're the odd man out.
Yeah, they're all man out. Yeah.
you were expecting to find diversity, but you didn't get it, did you?
Yeah.
So there's an overwhelming sense of loneliness that kicks in, right?
So I've heard this thing about Bergen as well, that it's Norway's biggest country town.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I feel like it's teetering on the edge of being a city. Calls itself a city. And it has
But it's
got like a
not quite.
long history of contact with the rest of the world. Like, this is a trading port, this is a harbor town. So it's not like it's a new thing, but at the same time, it's still got this small town
Well,
vibe.
historically speaking, Bergen has been through a lot. You know?
Yeah.
They've had a fire at
Yeah.
one point, and if you go to the place called Kjøttbasaren,
Yeah.
it used to be. If you notice, the building says the Hansa, Bergen Hansa,
Yeah.
and which means it was a trading.
This is a trading point.
A
It's
trading
really
point
important
between the
city.
Germans and they were coming in, and plus if you look at World War II, for
Yeah.
example, Bergen has been through a lot, and of course being attached to the country itself, which was also attached to something called the Kalmar Union,
Yeah.
with the Danes and the Swedes. Norway got the short end of the stick in that
In the interaction.
interaction.
Yeah.
And what happens is Norwegians know what it is to be the minority. They know. Why? Because they've been part of the Kalmar Union.
Yeah.
And guess what happened in the Kalmar Union, which was ran by the Danes? They were the ones that started the Jante Law.
Yeah. So it comes from there, yeah.
Right, it came from there. I tell people about Jante Law is that Jante Law is not a law. Whoever creates that law is not creating that law for them. He's creating that law for you, the minority.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful way to take away your autonomy.
We got some of the Jante Lovens written down here.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I think that's a kind of a good segue,
Yeah.
into that topic. So I'm gonna read out because we have some for the viewers that haven't heard or don't know about the Jante Law
Control.
or
The law of Jante.
Love, as they call it in Norwegian. I'll read some of those out now. You shall not think you are special. You shall not believe you are smarter than others. You shall not believe you are wiser than others. You shall not behave as if you are better than others. You shall not believe that you know more than others. You shall not believe that you can fix things better than others. Interesting.
That's hardcore, man.
You shall not laugh at others. So y'all should stop laughing at me. You shall not believe that others care about you. You shall not believe that you can teach others anything.
That's so dark
Very
when you say it out
interesting.
loud. It's so dark.
It's the first time I'm hearing. This is the first
So,
time I'm actually
in
hearing
English.
everything.
Yeah, right?
I've never looked at it.
So, Michael, my question for you is, when you listen to this,
Yeah.
what pops out? Like, what do you think immediately when you...
I think about why the reason why I'm not more successful than I should be when I listen to that, because I pretty much, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. I need to go call my therapist. This is not good. No, I mean, I've definitely broken every single law. Listening to that read out loud.
Put it back to your cultural connections to Nigeria. Like, how does that fit in? Like, is there something? There's nothing.
It doesn't.
It's
It
like the
doesn't.
opposite.
It will fit in the north.
Oh, it would fit in.
Yeah, it
Okay,
would.
so it exists in a way.
I don't think in Cameroon, even in the north, it's not going to fit in.
No, not entirely, but I can see some aspects of it, especially when I've been through a couple of ethnic wars myself. So, surviving ethnic wars, I've been through 3 ethnic wars with the north.
Which of them is going to fit in the most? Is it?
Don't
which
feel
of
like you're
them is-
better. Don't feel like you're better than us. That's for sure.
Okay.
That one is not gonna suit well for you up north.
Australia's got this thing called tall poppy syndrome. It's kind of the same. It's like if someone gets too full of themselves,
Yeah.
you cut them down. It's like the one flower that kind of grows
Or the one nail.
closer to the light. Yeah. In Japan, they have this saying that the nail that sticks out should be
Yeah.
hammered down.
I just think that's really crazy, and I think it just kind of waters down on innovative people,
Yeah.
and people who really want to excel in certain fields or
Yeah.
whatever it is they're doing. Because if you want to push the boundaries, it feels like you have to sort of not adhere to a lot of the things that have been mentioned here.
Yeah.
I think for me is what I hear also. So I don't care these days. I think people know who I am already. I speak my mind, and it is what it is. And it's coming from a place of just observing. it also comes from a place of arrogance, in my opinion.
Okay.
Ironically, in some weird way.
You mean what are you about to say, or this? Yeah.
The Jante Law also.
Okay.
I think it's a bit arrogance, which is like, first of all, who wrote this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. How
and
does that become so
it should
established
apply to them.
culturally?
It's like you were trying to tell me what to do or what not to do by telling me how to behave. And
Yeah,
it's
right,
like you're
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of breaking your own
Yeah.
laws that you're writing.
Yeah.
In a sense.
that's what I'm saying. It's very. That's the irony of it all.
You shall not feel you shall not believe you are smarter or wiser than
Yeah.
others, and yet you think you know what's better for me.
Thank you. And that's what I mean by paternalism. Also, paternalism is an extension of colonialism, right?
Okay.
Scandinavia was late to the party,
Yeah.
right? And so because if people think at the end of the colonial times or imperialistic times, like, do you think all the colonial fathers just died?
Yeah.
Same day, same time, like
You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
disappeared.
okay, we're done, you know? And if you look at colonial times ending in the 60s, that means that these are actually the guys who were around during the oil boom here.
Right.
If you think about it, historically speaking, it's right on line with it. And that would explain a lot.
Okay.
And during the oil boom, what do you need to do? Well, when oil comes in, well, you need cheap labor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You need to get people from outside to get in. But at the same time, you're not really sure about the economical thrusts or outcome of your oil. So what do? You need to figure out a way to pay them less.
Huh.
Right?
The one interesting thing, like speaking about oil, is interesting because Nigeria's
for sure.
got oil going on, but the Norwegians, they managed to kick the Americans out once it was discovered and say, "Thank you, we'll take care of this
You
from
mean
here."
in Norway?
In Norway.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Whereas most other countries experience the complete reverse, and they get people. The West comes in for the resources and says, "Thank you, we'll be taking this, and we'll give you a little bit, maybe nothing."
right. Thank you very much. Exactly. That's for me. That's where the arrogance of this comes in.
Yeah, so maybe like Norway managed to navigate that in a way that so few
brilliant.
countries do, and
brilliant.
Maybe there's a bit of that in there. Like
100%.
these Americans coming in, like you're not going to tell us how to do this. So in a way, like
Kind of
maybe it
took a little bit
benefited
of
them.
that.
It's not. It's a very colonial mindset,
Yeah.
actually.
Can I just shoot in here that Jante Law is from a book from 1933, and it's the book is called "An Immigrant Crosses Its Path," and it's made as an observation, not as an actual somebody defining it.
Okay.
It's an observation of the human's inherent evil and the ability to push others down.
Yeah, like a natural instinct that we've got. Yeah.
So that's what that text actually is.
Yeah.
It's like an
Damn.
observation
Yeah.
of, look how bad people can be.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Translate to make it still that way.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
they're doing
It's
it.
the immigrant that observes it. That's what I was talking about. How no, it's if you're an immigrant, this is something you observe when it comes to Jante Law. You see it yourself.
Yeah.
If you look at the topic of integration, you see, this is me sounding as if I know better, right?
Nah.
So which means that by default, I'm already breaking so many rules.
You're above the law now.
But
aren't you?
I am not. I'm just speaking out of my own personal experiences, and I always say that Norway fails at integration because it is yet to understand the concept of it. What does that mean? That means that when you go to a new country, it is not your job to integrate yourself. It is actually the people of that country or that space who are supposed to integrate you. For example, if you came to Nigeria to visit me, it is my job to make sure that you know where to go. You know what I mean? There's certain spaces I'll say, okay, don't go there because this can happen to you right here.
Right.
And they say, oh, Michael, I need a job. All right, let's show you around. Let me take you to the art museum. Let me take you to this and this and this. I have to do that with you for maybe at least a couple of months, right? And then you'll be like, I'm good, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can get around. You don't need to follow. Maybe you want me to come with you? No, I'm good. I got it. Why? Because the people in the neighborhood, they've seen me with you, right? So they're like, no, that's Michael's guy. He's good. Hey, what's up, bro? Yeah. And you're like, oh, shit. Yeah, you're Michael's.
Suddenly you know people and it's like
Right.
shit is starting to happen.
Exactly. Now you can make friends. Now it's all good. I've vouched for you.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
okay. No problem. But here, I don't think it happens like that. Speaking as a foreigner, I could
You kind of push yourself into it more.
You
You
have
have to
to.
kind of force yourself into it.
For sure, because you're living in a space where people are usually closed by default, right? And you keep trying to like, okay. And then the only time a Norwegian can be themselves, really, no offense, is when there's alcohol involved, right? There's a new personality comes out. And then you think that personality is the real personality until the next day in the morning when you say hi to the very same
And they don't
person.
recognize you anymore. It's like, who are you? Why are you greeting me in the bus? Like, don't you know you're not supposed to talk to me? That's
We
pretty
all know
common.
that one, man. We've all been there.
I don't think there's anybody who hasn't sort of experienced that, where it's like maybe there's this gathering and alcohol goes around, and then suddenly people open up and you sort of strike a good conversation with somebody. It's like, okay, this is good. Next day in the bus, you see you cross paths with them. It's like, hey man, what's happening? It's like, hey, who are you? And you're like, wait, what?
What just happened? And then if you look at also the dating culture, it's the same thing. Like my friend Paul was saying the other day, he said, well, the only time you can meet someone is on a Saturday, right? Or on the Friday. Why? Because that's when everybody's drinking.
All right.
That's when people can actually have a conversation. You can maybe pick up a girl or whoever, and which is crazy because in different parts of the world, like where I'm from, you see
It's
Social
going down every
interaction
day.
is
like,
It's going on every day, Monday to Monday.
like,
People are talking, and
it could be 7 a.m.
let's go.
You find someone attractive, you just
Yeah.
go say what's up, you know. And here people don't give compliments as much. Also, you give a lady a compliment. I don't do it anymore. I'm scared these days. I just keep I just keep my mouth
Stay in your
closed.
lane.
Man, I've learned my lessons. I just don't even bother, because I've been accused of so many things. Just me saying hi to a person and being social to a person.
All right.
Like,
So I guess you've kind of learned that you don't give compliments on a regular day. So Monday to Friday, no compliments. Saturdays, maybe. Sundays, maybe. Yeah?
Sundays we going to church.
Yeah, so maybe that's kind of like the new unspoken rule. It's like maybe people are more receptive to compliments or social interactions on the weekends.
Yeah, they work in the weekends.
Mondays to Fridays is just work, go. And you see it in people like this. People are more stressed out. They're running to catch buses. It's just like, I need to get to this place at this time and do this thing, this in these boxes. And then on the weekend, it's a little bit more relaxed, where people go for walks in the mountain, and then suddenly they can start to say hi.
Yeah.
And the whole dynamic changes.
It creates for a very shallow space, actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like these days when people ask me, there's this question, go de bra, and it's just like, how are you? Nowadays I answer with numbers. I don't answer.
Okay, break it down for me.
Like
I
if
don't
you ask me
understand.
how are you, I would just say 7.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's a scale kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing that now for the last 2 months.
Okay, and
it's
what's been the...
Oh yeah, that's. I mean, I think it depends on where you are in life. Also, if you're an adult, you have kids, and you're not a 10.
No.
Of course not, but I mean,
Really.
what's been the reaction from people like when they say
They've
God
started
blah?
doing it. They've started
They
doing
get
it
it.
now.
Yeah.
They started doing it with their like.
Back to you or to other people?
So when they ask me and I say 6,
Okay.
they be like, okay, and I'm like, what do you mean? And because then they sit for 2 seconds and like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, okay, all right.
So it's not binary. It's like, yeah, it's fine or it's not.
Exactly.
It's kind of,
It's not binary because things here can be very binary.
Yeah.
Either good or bad, black or white, this and this. There's no room for anything else. So I just try to just offset all that by creating a non-binary system of numbers, which is how are you? 6.
okay.
If you're an adult, you would understand what I mean, right? So now at the end, when I now ask them the same question, so what about you? How are you doing? They'll be like,
Okay, I get it now.
So I'm forcing you to be a real person, I'm forcing you to really think.
Yeah.
Because, and then by that default, I've also shown you that I am also a real person who can hold space for whatever it is that you're going through.
The nuances, kind of.
Right. If you tell me 3, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, cool, what's up? And then you feel okay to tell me what's up, without me judging you, right? And then, but saying for me, because it's like, go de bra, yeah. Good,
Yeah.
bro. Yeah, most people tend to say yeah.
And even if it's not going well, right?
Yeah,
it's almost like
it's a generic,
always-
Yeah.
generic answer. Good, bro. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, bruh.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Are you always on that 10 scale?
What's wrong with you?
I mean,
Man,
you have to have some days where you're, yeah.